All right.
Mr. Derik, thank you very much, man, for saying yes to this project of mine, man. It means a lot that people are saying yes. I thank you very much for being here.
Oh man, thank you for having me, brother. Thank you for having me.
So let's go right into it. How many children do you have?
I have three boys, three
Three
wonderful
boys. Okay.
boys who I'm very proud of.
Nice, nice, nice. What are the ages?
Ages 18, soon to be 12. He's got a birthday coming up this week, and 10. We just had one for him.
18, 12, and 10.
12 and 10. Yeah.
Pretty cool. 18, 18, 12.
Yep.
All three with the same mother?
No.
Okay,
My
that's yeah.
Yeah. My oldest was with a previous relationship.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's important. So as this is all about fatherhood, right? So my curiosity here is, what's your life? What's your fatherhood life like? That's really like what I want to know about, right? All the questions are going to be like, how did you arrive at that idea? How did you arrive at that conclusion? Um, what are some of the things that you do, that are special to you, that that you're doing for your children, right? For you and your children, for
Right.
your relationship with your children, right? So you can talk about anything that you want as long as you can connect it back to you as a father, right? Um, because here's the thing. Here's what all the research shows, that we fathers are immensely important in the lives of children. um and the more I talk about it, the more I read about it, the more obvious it becomes, but it's not obvious to everybody, and it certainly wasn't obvious to just a generation back.
Right.
So maybe what we could do is we could start like at the very beginning. You as a child, what was, did you grow up with your dad?
Oh yeah, I grew up with my father. I grew up in home, mother and father. And he was my primary hero growing up. He was the man. And if you ever met my father, you'd get it. He is the life of the party. He is he has a fantastic, wonderful, charismatic personality. Lights up a room. Everyone remembers him. He's everyone's best friend. And, he walks in and it seems like he's known everyone forever, and I always had, and his regard to like, with regard to like, other kids who met my father, he was, I had the cool dad,
Yeah.
so, the biker, you know what I mean? Yeah. But he gave me a lot of, he was a good guy. He was a really good guy,
Did
and
he
yeah, yeah.
he
So
passed away?
no, he's
Oh,
he's.
okay.
I'm talking about me as a child, and I still have him. By the
Okay.
way, my parents are still alive,
Yeah.
and I see them all the time. You know what I mean? And my children have a active, engaged relationship with both my parents,
Yeah.
and they're still together. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But how do you think that your dad was able to be so different? Was he highly engaged, or do you think that you may make him, he was just so good when he was around that he appeared to be there more than he really was?
All right. So my dad worked a lot. All right, and let me get well. No one's perfect. Right? He was a father, and he was for all his you know for all his great points. He had his imperfections just like anybody else. He worked a lot, but I always felt like he was there. He always kept his finger on the pulse of what was going on in the house. You know what I'm saying? So he was a bus driver, and he worked, for MTA, and and my mom was a social worker, and so they, between the two of them, we did okay in our home. But
Yeah,
he
yeah,
worked a lot of hours,
yeah.
and we moved out to Long Island when I was a kid from Brooklyn, and we're part of, I guess, that migration of people from from the city out to the suburbs back in the '70s. And he made it happen for
Yeah.
us, So and we had a pretty decent childhood,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What are some of the some of your more exciting memories as a child with him?
okay, so as mentioned, he was a bus driver, but he was also a biker, right? So he had a motorcycle club that he used to go to out in East New York. So I remember as a child him sort of passing me around the smoky bar. And it was always music and there were always people there. But everywhere he went, he took me with him a lot. You know what I mean? So, it wasn't like he was an absentee father. You know what I mean? Even if he was hanging out a lot of times when I was really little, he would take me with him, man. You know what I mean? So don't ask me how I made it out the 70s with, with all the cigarette smoke and all of that in the bar. But
Right. Oh,
yeah, but
and
yeah, but
and I get the moment, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's what's normal at the moment is it's what's normal.
yeah,
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 we can critique it from from the future and against the things that we now know, right? But
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that you and I know that I am going to be, you know, I know that I'm going, no, well, someone's going to look back at the things that I did with my kids and say, wow, like really, and you took them to a biker bar in the back of your
Yeah, yeah,
motorcycle, no
yeah,
helmet, and everybody's smoking and drinking in there, and you're on a motorcycle and drinking. It's like,
yeah, yeah.
but
Oh, yeah, yeah.
it made sense then, right? I mean, the
And
cars, cars didn't have seatbelts,
that's right. That's right.
for a long time.
That was a thing. No air bell. But that was the 70s. That's how
Yeah,
so and I wouldn't trade it for anything, man.
right.
The experience was great.
Yeah,
Obviously I have those, we laugh about it now, and he
yeah,
still smokes like a chimney. You know
that's
what I
right.
mean? He's 80 years old. But he's in fantastic shape. I don't get it. You know what I mean? He
Yeah.
drinks like a fish, smokes like a chimney.
Oh my God.
But he's still a great guy, man. And he's still, for some reason, can still outwork guys half his age. I've seen this guy. He always had a side hustle, which was plumbing. You know what I mean?
Oh
So I
yeah.
used to work with them. Used to pull out a lot of those old boilers out of the buildings out in Brooklyn. The old cast iron ones.
Jeez.
And you'd
Yeah.
have to break them in sections, and we'd have to
Yeah.
bust open the side of and pull them out. And it was back-breaking work. And I'd see him get in there and with guys that were half his age, and he'd outwork them all. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. And I worked with him a few times, and I knew I wasn't a plumber when I went in there with him, man. And he worked, man. I fatigue like you wouldn't believe. You know what I mean? I just had to cut it out and just sit in the car for a while. He just kept working, still smoking a cigarette.
It's so interesting that you say that because the drive is different. It's not that you couldn't. It's not you that you weren't a good. Is that you? It's not that plumbing wasn't your thing. It's probably more like because I see it. I see this in my life with my children where there's a reason why I'm doing the plumbing. Like it
Yeah,
means something to me. Like I wouldn't be surprised if you, having learned everything that you wouldn't do any cast iron ones, but something similar now as an adult that you would take your kids with you, and they'd be like, Dad,
yeah,
I don't think we're doing this, right? And the same thing, they would look at you and go
yeah.
like, this guy is mad,
Oh
right?
yeah,
To
yeah,
be
yeah.
going
No,
so fast, so hard for so long.
yeah.
But there's he was probably driven by something that you could that wasn't driving you also.
Oh yeah, man. I think he was just a different breed, man. I think I've
Yeah.
seen those. I've seen those guys because I worked with him, but we also worked. And when I was young, I got a lot of my work ethic from my uncle, my great uncle, which was his uncle, and he would give us like some of our earliest construction jobs. You know what I mean? That's like you know he'd work us all day for $20 in a sandwich. You know what I mean? Teenagers. but he taught us how to work, man. He taught us
Yeah.
how to work. And
Yeah, you were lucky to get paid anything. He was teaching you everything.
exactly, we didn't always get paid, but so when the first time I got $20 from him, it was like, wow, let's do this again. But again, and even him, he'd say, son, you don't have half. He'd be like, you're not half the man I was when I was your age.
Uh,
I can't. He was that guy. He was that uncle.
yeah, yeah,
But he just had a crazy work ethic, and I
yeah,
don't know that. I don't know if that was just they're from North Carolina, so I
yeah,
don't know if that was a North Carolina country boy thing. I don't know what it was. But they just working on the farm, and they just
Yeah.
have maybe that farm work. I don't know anything about working on a farm. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
don't know anything about that work ethic. You know what I mean? But whatever it was that they had, it served them well in life because I'm telling you, both of them, they'd work
Yeah.
guys half their age, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. It sounds exciting. It sounds like a really cool experience as a child with this, with this great uncle and your dad, and the idea of being taken to work. I mean, that's so cool for kids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Especially if your dad's not like being difficult, and not understanding the age difference and the reasons and the reason for his drive versus the reason for you being there.
yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of dads end up ruining the moment because their expectations are so great of this child.
Yeah, I would say with him, I never suffered from those heightened expectations from him. He was always very even keel. Always gave me plenty of room to be who I was going to be. You know what I mean? There was a time when I was a teenager where I was kind of, he tightened me up when they needed to, you know. But that's to be expected. But for
Yeah.
the most part, he always kind of gave me the room and to feel accepted, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, as whoever I was, and you know what I mean, and I remember that's what I take with him. He wasn't he wasn't a very stick. Obviously, he wasn't a stick in the mud. He didn't have anything like that. He
Yeah.
was very very cool, forgiving or just open person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, and he could get angry if take care of business too. But for the most part, he was very open. He was always very open minded, and he's still that way today.
Yeah.
I think I come from a family of philosophers. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
That's
he's
pretty
still
cool.
he's very philosophical with everything he does.
So as a dad, he was awesome. As the man, as your mother's man, how do you, without getting yourself in trouble, like, was he, did you pick up pointers for how a man should behave with his woman?
Um. Now here we go.
Oh, don't get in trouble.
Well,
Don't answer only whatever you can.
I'm going to tell you this. He treated my mother well. He
Okay.
treated us well. Now, and it was and that's cool. I've had to alter some of his teachings because you have to understand the idea of manhood, of what constitutes a man or how a man should act or behave has changed. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways,
Yeah.
um, you know, when I was coming up, when we were coming up, manhood,
Yeah.
looked a certain way or was supposed to feel a certain way. A man was supposed to communicate a certain way and have certain concerns, and you know what I mean. We were kind of in a certain box,
Yeah.
and I think the same thing obviously happened with his generation and the
Yep.
generation before. So what you do is you kind of take a lot of that stuff, but you have to change some of it too. You know what I mean?
Mm.
We live in this world where us as men, we have to learn to let go of some of the old preconceived notions of what we should be about. You know what I mean? And it's just about just the next. I think it's just the natural evolution of
Yeah.
people. You know what I mean? Of society and culture.
I think
So
it's smart. It's smart to say, to recognize it, and to have this knowledge be part of our daily lives. Have this knowledge. What you're saying is, manhood changes, and it changes over time, and it has to. We evolve, and something that technology forces evolution on men, on man, all right,
right,
on men and women, on civilization. um Technology does. I mean, if you think about, the idea, for instance, I don't know if you track your kids on their phones when they're out and about. A generation ago, when you and I were kids, we left in the morning. On a Saturday morning, we left the house in the morning. Nobody knew where I
exactly.
was the entire day
Yeah,
until I came home for dinner.
yeah. That's right. That's right. That's
I
right.
literally, I did not eat. I might have had breakfast before I left the house. I don't remember ever eating as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. No, food was definitely secondary to play. It was
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah. That was definitely just a secondary a concern. And you know, and all we knew was, all right, make sure you're inside before those street lights turn on. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
that's
And
it.
that was it, you know, and that was like the one rule, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, just and now I can't get my kids, I can't drag my kids outside, it seems like, you know what I mean? And it's like, you know, but that's just kind of, though we did have a really, really good, we had a really good trip recently where I was able to take them away and they were able to ride ATVs and really
Yeah.
get some outside. And it kind of made me feel a lot better because I have a real, and maybe some of the men or some of the, obviously some of the parents who'll be watching this can kind of, you know, relate, you know, with this, you know, the electronic devices, that's like a thing with the kids. I can't drag you know what I mean? Like I have to like, listen, go outside and put some sunlight on your skin. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Some direct sunlight. That's a thing. And but I did find, and because once we were able to go away, um, you know, as a family, and they were able to kind of get some real outdoors time in a completely different setting. There was no Wi-Fi, there were no computers, there were, you know what I mean? There was nothing like that. You know, well, there was some Wi-Fi, but there was no, like, you know, the things that they're used to.
Yeah.
And they were, you know, they did pretty well in that, you know,
Yeah.
in that environment. You know what I mean? They just really were able to just kind of hang out with us and, you know, and really enjoy themselves like that. So um, but but yeah, you know, I mean, I'm learning so much. Like as a father, I'm always learning. We're always learning. You know, our kids are going to be different from us as we were different
Right.
from our parents. You know,
Right.
and you know, so some of that stuff, you know,
Yeah.
you know, I guess maybe it's just change. You know what I mean? So maybe, you know, maybe I look at my father and I say some of the things that I learned from him were just, I will never change him. And then some of it was just like I just couldn't bring it forward into
Right.
today's society, maybe today's time. You just
Yeah.
can't. You have to let it go, you know.
It
And I'm
doesn't.
pretty sure I have the same thing happen to me, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because some things don't translate. But Derek, here's the thing. Here's the really important thing and what I love about everything that you're saying. You're aware. You're aware of what is happening. You're aware that some things are going to have to stay, some things are going to be modified for your fatherhood, for your time
Mm-hmm.
as father, especially of you know of children or young men. You said three boys.
Yeah, three boys. That's
So
right.
of young men, like under 25, right? Like some things need to be modified. For example, you were talking about the devices, right? The screen time. um we as fathers today in 2020 have to compete
Yeah,
against these highly addictive devices.
yeah, yeah.
If
And
we are not fully engaged as fathers and are making this immense effort to pry them away from that so we can show them some other part of life, another, and not not maybe not just another part of life, but something that we grew up with,
right, right.
the outdoors.
Yeah, an experience, just a full experience of what the world really has to offer. Because I just finished telling my kids, maybe today, I said, what I like, was it yesterday? I told my middle son, he joined, he's the artist of the three. You know what I mean? He's the most artistic. But and I swear to you, he's just brilliant. He's one of those people. He's already one of those people that whatever he puts his mind to, he's gonna be great at. And it comes to him so easily. You know what I mean? Music, acting, just, you know, just anything that you can think of. You know what I mean? He's a good looking kid. He's healthy. You know, he's just, so I worry for him because I say, okay, what happens when things start to get tough? You know what I mean? Are you going to have that extra? Is he going to have that extra gear
Mm.
to, you know what I mean, to really bring himself, to get to his true self, to get to his true potential, you know, as a person, as a man, you know what I mean? And just, you know, so I know that things aren't always going to be things, and I have to tell him, listen, son, things aren't always going to come so easy to you. So he listens and he knows. So he told me yesterday, because it was okay. So he went and he joined a club. He joined robotics and coding because that's his way of stretching himself and trying something different because he knows it's important. And he just looked at me, and as he's telling me this, I'm watching his face reflect my pride. And I watch his grin as he's telling me, and he already knows, like, because he knows I love robotics and I love anything STEM. He knows this already, right? So, and I'm watching his grin just grow and grow and grow as he's telling me, and I'm like, son, that is amazing, I think he really felt my energy because I really and truly felt it, and that's the thing. It's hard to so it's hard to keep them, let's say, from information has never been easier to get, right? You can literally open up a phone and get get the answer to any question that you can think of. All right. So I have to kind of walk that line of kind of balance. Okay, how much access should I have to this thing, which is potentially good for them and beneficial, right? But at the same time takes them away and is distracting from the rest of their life experience. You know what I mean? And it's a constant thing where I'm trying to keep them well rounded, not just in their phones, or they don't have phones actually, in their computers or whatever, their laptops and everything, and constantly online. I'm like, okay, so you've been online, because they'll be online all day if
Oh
I
yeah,
can.
yeah,
And I'm like, you have do know, do a push up or a sit up or something. Get outside and
yeah,
get some sunshine on your face. You know what I mean? Do something. So and just take a break from that and do something else. So they're trying within. It's good to see that in his own way. My middle son, as an example, was trying. He was hearing me. You know what I mean? And in his own way, he was trying to stretch himself and round himself out a bit. You know, so that's always sort of a thing that I
yeah.
kind of have to worry about.
Yeah,
You know.
it's got to be, it has to be difficult for children, for a 10 and 12-year-old, my case 12 and 13, to understand where we're coming from,
Yeah.
because they don't know what it's like to not have all these screens,
Right.
all these videos, all this
Right.
information and technology. They just don't know what and for us as dads, it's so I keep thinking about this. Like, I know, Derik, that you're doing your best, and that all of these ideas about pulling your kids away from the screens they certainly appear to be great ideas, and they appeal to me as well, because
Yeah.
you and I grew up in during that time. But this is the part that's a little wacky is we really don't know where this is all going.
Yeah.
So when you and I are trying to parent to be the best dads possible,
Yeah.
we're doing it in retrospect.
Yeah.
We're looking back
Yeah.
we're looking at our at the at, a decades ago for
Yeah.
for insight into what to do now, which is very much in the future of that past. But here's where it gets really wacky. We're trying to get it right today and making a huge assumption about a decade into the future. We have
Right.
no idea.
And it's interesting that you said, and something just came to my mind as you were saying that. We're looking for the reason. There's a sense of security
Yeah,
in knowing. Obviously, you're looking for security
that's what it
when
is.
you're faced with something that you don't know is coming. You're looking for some sense of security. So of course you're going to look back at what you already had, whether it worked or not. It's just familiar. You know what I mean? And you automatically you're going to pull from that. You're going to be, the bias is definitely to pull from the past, and maybe that's natural. You know what I mean? Um, but again, that's all we know. We only know what we know. And you try to do the best you can and push whatever it is you know. I've realized that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen any more than you do. I can't. I know that logically I can't worry so much about it. But I do. And
Well, I mean,
I
so if you
do.
if you care, you do,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
if you so let me ask you this. How do you is can you I don't I'll ask you this question. How what do you think of yourself as a dad? Like, what do you know who you are? Like, let me give me yeah. Can you tell me a little bit
That is
about
a journey. And I think that that is a journey that I'm still taking.
yeah,
I don't think I ever have gotten to a place where I understood myself
yeah,
completely.
yeah,
I don't think, and I realize, and even as I'm having this conversation, even as you're asking that, that I don't that it's almost it's unreasonable for me to expect for me to expect that I should, because if I'm a healthy person, I'm constantly changing with the times, right?
yeah,
So, my mind, what I think today is different from how I thought years ago, which will be different how I think it from how I think in the future. So how will I ever really know myself? You know what I mean? So what I do know about myself is that there's just certain fundamental codes that I will keep.
right,
And those are laws, those are gravity to me. You know, you know, things that were taught to me or instilled in me by my own parents, by my own father. um, Treat a woman nicely, you know, um, you know, don't steal. You don't have to. You know what I mean? If you're lying, why? It's like it's fear, So I talk to him. I think about it, and I try to take some of that stuff. Don't take life so seriously is another one. He would often tell me that just to kind of keep me loose, and I kind of try and push some of that serious because forward, because you really don't know what's happening, as you said, you don't know. So why get so
yeah,
worked up about it? You
yeah,
know. So it's just one of those things. So I think there are just some fundamental things that will always be part of my character. And I guess that you could just say that just the character stuff, that stuff is timeless. That stuff will stay with you until the end. But how I am as a person, or how I think I should, allow myself the chance to grow in
yeah.
different places.
Do you
Oh,
think have you thought of do you have a lens through which you see fatherhood? You're when you look at your children and you look at yourself, do you how do you like in moments like it, whenever you need to make a decision, do you know where it comes from? Like what is it that guides your decisions, especially the more difficult ones?
yeah, just love and forgiveness.
All right, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I
That's
think
cool.
that's I think that's where I come from. That would be my
Yeah,
just love and forgiveness. You know, Obviously a place of love,
yeah,
which fuels my need to know, my ability to give, and then and everything that comes from it. And then whatever the effect of it is, there's forgiveness.
mm,
If it goes to the left, the ability to forgive
yeah,
my children, forgive myself, uh, whoever, you know, forgive my enemy, or someone who's I feel wronged by, um, because I can't take that anger and stress forward into my life.
yeah.
So that's sort of thing.
Yeah, that's cool, especially the love part. I'm with you. Why do you yeah, man, it's got to be you got to be doing it from a place of love.
Yeah,
You got
yeah, it's the
I think
language.
when you were talking about the fundamentals.
Yeah,
You
and that's
know,
all we have. That's all we really have. Just the fundamentals. Just
yeah.
there's just the baseline stuff, and you don't know which way this thing is going to go after that. Like there are just certain
Right.
things. Just try to be true to your sense of self, your code, or whatever it is that you have. You want to call it. your base character, and that's where you're going to be most comfortable. And I can just and I feel like whatever decision that I make, as long as I understand that it came from that place, I can deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell my kids, listen, don't be afraid to make a mistake. If you make a mistake, just remember, clean up your mess, and that's it. And I try to use that same advice. That's what I do for myself. There are a ton of things that I wish I could take back in my life. The regret. We can all play the regret game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, if I just would have said this when I said that, or if I just would have did this instead of that. You know what I mean? When I should have zigged instead of zagged, whatever, and you can look back and it's hindsight is just so clear and so 2020. But you have to kind of forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And so if I can forgive myself, and I can, of course, I'll be able to forgive my kids, because I can't, I just have to pour into them the best. I can just be, the most that I can, and let them, and just hope that I built them to a point where they can just take off and make their own decisions. My oldest is finally out. He's off to the Navy. And he's at boot camp right now, finishing up. And I finally got an opportunity to talk to him, kind of similar, because when you first go in, you don't hear anything from him, and then around the end, you can kind of have some communication. You get a letter here or a call there, and I'm just listening to him, and I'm just so excited for him, just the opportunity he can be a man, and and just go on and start his life. And I just have to trust that everything that I poured into him, he can just take it and run with it, And that doesn't mean that I, as a father, sometimes I struggle, especially when I don't hear from him for a while, especially that period when he first started boot camp and I had no contact with him. Oh, I was a mess. I was a mess, Ricardo.
Yeah.
I missed his phone call, because if you don't know, when you go to the Navy, they get one call just to say, hey, I made it here to boot camp. That's it. So I'm safe. I missed that call. And I was a wreck for a month later, because the next time I heard him, it was like a month later almost. You know what I mean? So when I heard from him, when I finally got the letter, because before that you don't have an address to write him a letter or anything. So I had to wait for the form letter to give me his actual address, and so I could have some sort of communication with him, and especially with all this COVID stuff that's going on in the quarantine. So there were all sorts of concerns. But that's a segue, as you can tell. Right?
No, it's good. It's good.
As you can tell, it's still heavy on my mind. But with him, I just enjoy. He's just, as an example, now he's a man. He's gonna, he's still a young man. He's 18, but he's old enough to, go out and make his decisions now. He made his big decision. He's serving his country, and he's, for all intents and purposes, you got older people that's, thank you for your service. You know what I mean? And he understands that. He understands the gravity of what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's making his own decisions, making his own choices now.
That's pretty cool. Do you so here's a question that I don't know where it'll go. You sound right. You seem to be a very engaged dad, right? That's like everything that you've said to me says that this is a guy who's engaged.
Yeah.
Fully. 1 to 10, 10 being the most engaged. A dad can be 1, obviously not engaged at all. Would you care to choose a number?
My level of engagement?
Yeah. 1 to 10.
You should probably ask my wife. She could tell you. Because here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'd say a 20, right? But she'd probably come in at a 6 or a 5 or whatever. You know what I mean? Because we just have a different language. You know what I mean? Like there's not a time when I wake up. From the minute I wake up, I think my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's 10.
Yeah. All right.
So wait. No, hold on. But you think your wife would disagree? But what?
Listen, so it's she'll probably think, okay, well, when was the last time you cooked a meal, or when was the last time you yelled at the kids? You know what I mean? So,
but did they go hungry? Did they go hungry because you didn't cook the meal?
Never been hungry a day in their life. They got a fridge full of food. Maybe I'm being a bit facetious, but we're on one accord when it comes to parenting. we're two different personalities when it comes to just us as people, but we really work together well. But
Yeah.
she'll look at me from time to time, and you know, she's a mother. She'll come in and she'll see something that I don't. Things that are important to me just aren't so important. Things that are important to her just aren't so important to me at
Right.
times. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Well,
So
so
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that this brings up an interesting point. We're a team. I mean, we're a
yeah,
team, and if you look at and any sport, right? The only one that I really know is soccer, more or less. I'm even not a great. I don't even follow it that much. Not a sports guy, but you'll get it. Meaning that if you're a team, right? So you might be the striker, right? Like she might be
right,
the striker. You may be, like defense. You may be offense. Like and everyone takes a different. Like we're not identical. We don't
right,
like you can't have two strikers,
right,
or
right,
you can't have two people all the way back in defense, right?
right. You have to be a team, and what it is she's strong in places where I'm not so strong, and vice versa. You know, and what that often means is sometimes that shows up in motivations or opinions. Again, I may not think that sock in the middle of the floor is a capital offense, and she may come in and she's like, listen, I told you to not put your socks in there. And, she's going, and then she'll look at me, why do you have the kids, with this, it doesn't make me a bad parent or less of a parent than her. But when you're working together, she, in her quiet time, she's thinking, why can't he tell the kids to do, X, Y, Z? Oh, he's not engaged and, he's taking it. But
Okay.
no, maybe I am thinking of the kids and see I can have time with my kids. I can have time with my boys uh where we're just quiet. Just they're just in the house. And with her, quality time may look like active conversation or active communication. I told her this. We kind of had a conversation with regard to us where she said we were sharing about she said her wanting to be close to me in a different way, um and I just and I just said in certain circumstances, hey, I wish that you would just. She asked me how was my day, or if I'm on the phone with someone, my friends, or what did you talk to, what did you talk about, what happened, and she's a woman and it's her way and she wants to communicate, right?
Mm.
And but if I'm on a phone with a buddy of mine, or if I'm just around about us as men, sometimes we can just spend time with each other and not say a word for 20 minutes or half hour. You know what I mean? So I said, listen, I referred her to that old commercial, that old Bud Light commercial, that Budweiser commercial where they go, "Hey, what's
Yeah, yeah,
up?" Right?
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that one?
yeah,
And I said, listen, what are they doing in that? They're just saying, "What's up?" But
yeah,
everyone gets it. Every man got it. You know what I mean? Because it's your buddies. You didn't need to have what was understood didn't need to be
right,
said. You were just spending time with each other, not saying anything. And she goes,
yeah,
"Oh, so then when you ask me what I talked about to my friend, if you ask one of those, they would say nothing." You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And that was it. But that I just used that as an example
yeah,
with regard to communication. There you may communicate in a different way than I do, and
yeah.
thus, what you consider quality time with the kids may differ from what I
Mm.
consider quality time.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky place in a relationship. Yeah, that we do. We're so different. Men and women are so different. Lately I've been putting a lot of emphasis on the idea that fatherhood does not equal motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because,
we're just, we're,
and that's
we
fine.
yeah, and that has to be fine.
It has to be. Yeah.
But but um but both have, each parent, has to feel fine within the idea,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know that we are different, and that from my point of view, I think that what I would say to people is, and what has worked for me is, lead with your strengths.
Right.
right? I mean, like you said, if you're leaving, clothing around, like laying around, if it means something to her, the question we do have to ask to ourselves, is that something that I can adjust in me?
Right.
Because there are things that she may not be noticing about me that I want her to adjust, but ultimately leading with your strengths, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you lead with your strengths. I lead, and you definitely do. I also have to acknowledge the ways where I'm not strong.
Right.
And I with her, and I definitely know, like, I can be very absent-minded, you know. And she, we just had the same thing. Yeah, I couldn't find these keys. I am notorious. I will not put the keys on the hook. So every day when it's time for me to leave, I've got to look for my keys. All right.
Yeah.
And some days it doesn't go as well as it should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we laugh about it now. And I know where the hook is and I know what I should be doing. But
Yeah.
for whatever reason, they just never make their way to the hook. And there
Yeah.
have been times when she can kind of, I don't know where I put things, but she can kind of just think logically with me and help me backtrack and help me find them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just, it's just, so it's
She
just the
probably
way we
she
are.
she
Yeah.
probably has a bet she probably has a better idea of where you are physically. I mean, we all have we are pretty these animals of habit, right? We do like, probably like a large percentage of what we do every single day is very
Yeah.
similar to the way that it was yesterday. So I wouldn't be surprised if she, knowing you the way that she does,
Oh
is
yeah.
she know you walk through that into the house, but you already have been absent. You already haven't been in your body for a while before you got to the house. So you
Yeah.
get to the house and you don't know
Yeah.
what you do with the keys because you haven't been in your body in a
Yeah. Yeah.
while. But she
Exactly.
knows where your body has been.
That's right.
She
She can
probably
track my.
she
Yeah, she can track my
It's what he
location.
does. It's what he
Yeah,
does.
exactly. She says so. It's got to be one of these places.
It's
Yeah.
got to be one of
Yeah.
these
Process
places.
of
And
elimination.
and you have been so somewhere else. I mean, like literally in another planet
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you don't even know where your body was.
That's me, Ricardo, and and I can be, I've gotten it. Have you ever gotten in the car and started driving somewhere and you didn't even know how you got there? You don't even
Oh
remember.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what I mean. But
autopilot.
yeah, autopilot. That's me. So I just wonder, like, how
Totally.
many things, other things in my life, I'm on autopilot with. You know what I mean? So yeah, and she kind of can helps me just kind of refocus at times and just.
What's one thing that you're like your dad with your kids?
Mm, I think I talk to my kids.
Yeah,
I think
communication.
communication. I think my father was a really good communicator with me. He told me a lot of things. Just conversational, a lot of conversations with my father could talk to me, and he could talk to me for an hour straight. And he would just be trying to beam. Now me as a kid, I'm like, I'm dying. I'm like, Dad, I want to leave. You know what I mean? But he was beaming that information into
Yeah,
me, man, and just trying to get me to understand where he was coming from.
yeah,
So he talked to me about any and everything. He talked to me,
yeah,
and he said, "Son, you never have a better friend than me." You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do. You know, you have to, but you have to. So I'm the same way with my kids in that sense. Like, I can sit and although I'm probably a little bit more um conscious of when they're starting to fidget
yeah,
and they want to kind of get out of it. So I try to wrap it up a little bit and condense it,
yeah.
but I can do the same thing. And
I
just kind
call
of.
it data dumping.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
did a lot of data dumping with my oldest, man, before he went to the
yeah,
Navy. A lot of it. I felt like I was in this rush to just dump as
yeah,
much data into him before he could leave, just
yeah.
because I wanted to really build him up. But he's doing fine. And at some point you just have to just and just let
Trust.
him go and just trust that you did everything that you can do, and he's got to take it from there. You know. So
Yeah,
and it's
I
been
f-
helpful.
I definitely feel like the first 12, 13 years or decade in my children's lives, I I was always thinking, what what have I not brought up, What
Yes.
have I not brought up? What have I not brought up? Have I brought up this? Have I said this? Have I tried that? Have I done this? Have I like have I prepared them?
Yeah.
Um, I'm still very much that 12 and 13 years later, I'm still very much like, what am I not seeing? Right? What corner am I not can I not see around? Do you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then that's the key, I think, coming from a place. I have to be ready. I know with myself, I have to be ready to forgive myself in case there was something I didn't cover, or in case something happened and because we can't possibly prepare them from every single scenario.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? You just can't, you know? So, so the best we can do is just kind of build them up so that they become a type of person, and that type of person that they can see themselves as can kind of just navigate the world and make their own decisions and, and live
Yeah.
with them, you know? So
Yeah, we can't you cannot cover it all.
can't possibly. Yeah,
There's
you can't
yeah,
possibly.
it's there's infinite variables
Yeah,
that keep us from being able to address every single subject.
yeah. And that doesn't
Um,
stop us from trying, because that doesn't stop us from trying to reach that place of security, that we need,
yeah,
and but because we're always going to be trying to get to that place, that
yeah.
stable place of security where I feel, everything's good. I've done everything.
Control,
Yeah, but you
some the
can't.
feeling of some control.
Yeah, exactly. Control, but you can't. So
Hmm.
you just have to trust it. You know.
Do you talk to young men, or do you ever find yourself talking to young men or other dads and giving them advice, or do you hear about do you hear stories from other fathers that sometimes you might go, ooh, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I try not to. I try not to be so. I try not to be so opinionated with
Mm,
regard to how other people are parenting. There are certain things that are obvious no goes. Neglect and um, and you know, people are just acting out. Just doing whatever they're doing. You know, abuse,
mm,
being abusive. So if it's not neglect or abuse, then obviously you gotta have to. I try not to be too opinionated, um, because I just know there's a period when I was a single father.
mm,
Before I met, or I should say met, before I got with got engaged and got married to my wife. Uh, there was just for a period of time there was just my oldest son and me.
mm.
All right. And I just remember thinking all the time, am I doing this right?
Mm.
I I felt like
Yeah,
the margin of error was just so razor thin, and
yeah,
I had to do everything just right, and I had to make the proper decision and the right decision all
yeah,
the time, and I had to always be on, and you do it, but I was, afraid all the time. I could get to that place of security, but
being a
if I
single
had,
parent, it's got to be hard, man,
oh,
so
dude,
hard.
yeah, it was rough, man. It was really, really tough, and you
I can.
know, it's amazing. You have this person that talking, his biological mother. You go through this thing where you have this person who you loved, who you said I love you to, and you stayed with, you lived with, and you see it all just,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you to get to the point where you stop even being human to one another,
yeah, yeah,
and you wonder how did you get to this place,
yeah,
and then there's this whole and then there's this whole thing that has to happen between the ears, just
yeah,
to kind of cope with that reality, and uh, how do I move my son through that reality? How do I move my kids
yeah,
through that reality?
yeah,
And again, you don't know what's coming on the other side. I didn't know my wife was coming, you
yeah.
know,
Right.
right? I didn't know she was coming. So it was pretty heavy, and then you still have those feelings of resentment, and you still have to
Yeah.
communicate with the kid, with the child's mother, and the whole
It's
thing.
absolutely, it's remarkable. It's how we can go from caring so much about somebody
Yeah,
to absolutely just, you know
we're
this this
human, just inhuman, man. Some of the way we treat each other, just oh God, if someone's watching this and they get it,
yeah. Oh, no,
they've
no.
been there. You know what I mean? So what's as I say, what's understood doesn't need to be said. But
and
it's astonishing when you stop and think about it.
and the children suffer the most
Yeah,
because they're so clueless,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they want to love both, and they find
As
themselves
they
in the
should.
weirdest, and they find themselves in the weirdest
Yeah,
of places, and there's no man's land. It's like literally there's like in no man's land, like in, in the wars, right, where you have cannons on the right with dad, you have cannons on the left with
yeah.
mom, and the kids like in the middle getting shot at,
Oh,
and
forget
like,
about it. Oh, there was at
just,
least one birthday, man, that we just completely wrecked with, you know what I
oh my
mean, with
god,
our,
his
with our
birthday.
not. Yeah, his birthday. We
Oh,
we wrecked at least one birthday. One that's comes to mind. We wrecked that birthday.
jeez.
You know, but it was one of those things, and the best I could say is the best I could do. I knew that I didn't want to harm him,
Yeah.
and I knew that we definitely had that potential.
Hmm.
So I had to be very, very careful with how I communicated with him, how I communicated with him around his mother, how I communicated with his mother around him. I remember I fell back on a lot of my father's teachings, how to treat a woman. You don't treat a woman bad,
Hmm.
and don't treat, I definitely don't treat the mother of my son, you know. Um, he I often said I didn't know, and I've told him that's like, son, I didn't know what love was. You were my real and true first love,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was, so I could never bring myself to treat his mother
Yeah.
anything less than, you know, in anything less than with the proper level of respect that,
Yeah.
what I mean, she deserved, and she deserved a lot more. She deserved a lot, and I try, and I think I was, and I like to think that I delivered on that throughout the years. It was
Yeah.
tough, and it was even tough, even going into my marriage. I mean, it was still tough at times.
Yeah.
Um, but I like to think that I always thought that at the end of the day, my son will be the final judge. He will be my final
Yeah.
judge. You know,
That's it.
and I always kept that in mind. How and yeah, I definitely I
Yeah.
did my best, and that's all you can really do. You know,
I cannot understand how we can be so mean to those we cared
yeah,
for so much,
yeah,
or currently care for so much.
yeah,
And I mean, I think about this often, how I have, especially earlier in my fatherhood career, where I was not very patient, and I cringe as I think about the moments that I just flew off the handle, just enraged over nothing, over nonsense, how I could be so mean to these children whom I love the more than anything.
yeah.
Like, my thought is, I would never treat a stranger this badly.
Right.
How and I don't understand how, if I couldn't do it to a stranger, why am I doing it to the person I love so much?
Yeah, yeah.
How does that work? I mean, where is that in my mind? Like, how can we be so mean? And it's not just me. I know that there's others out there who are being
Yeah,
really mean to their children and to their partners, and yet they're not that way to their bosses or to their friends or
yeah.
to strangers. Like, how are we
It's
be
it's a broken. It's something that's just, I don't know. It's that strange connection with between love and fear.
Uh-huh. Right. Right.
You know, It's that strange connection between love and fear.
It's fear.
Yeah, it's
It's
fear.
fear.
Fear, love. The more you love, the
Yeah,
greater your capacity for love, the greater your capacity for fear.
for fear. Yeah, that's good. That's good, man. You nailed it. That's what it is. It all boils down to fears. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
that's what
think.
it is.
Yeah, and it's just it's sometimes you don't have the words, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah, like I am so afraid right now, right? I just right. So instead of like being able to stop and having and having the vocabulary to express um big feelings,
right,
right? It's so that's what it is. At that moment, we cannot arrive at verbalizing such big feelings that would keep us from the outburst that we're going to regret later.
right,
If we could
yeah,
say things like, I'm so afraid right now about what's about to happen. I'm so afraid of what could happen. I don't, I need support, right? That you cannot give me. I mean, yeah, that's what it is, Eric. You're
yeah.
right.
And where are you going to get that support from? There, you're sensing, you're looking for that
Yeah.
escape from fear. You're trying to escape that place of fear. You're trying to look for that security. It's not to be found, and
Outburst. It's all you got.
that
And
energy is just building and building and
yeah,
building,
yeah.
and it's got to go someplace.
It's a scream. It's a scream. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You're right. It's in a situation like that, you just don't have it. Like you're at the end. You're right. So you're at the end of it. You've arrived at the furthest point that you could possibly explain, and there's still more, and it manifests in this explosion of word, like angry words, and
yeah,
just these weird behaviors with these people. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, yeah. That's got to be it. That's got to be it.
yeah, sounds right. Relationships, and that's why all of this is why relationships are fragile. And I think about this
Yeah,
often, man. I talk to my children about this. I talk to them all the time. When they're mean to me, silliness, right? When I feel like they should be nicer to me, and I'm like, when we get
I want
into
my
argument,
kids to be nicer to me. Why are you not?
like
I'm
when
your
I
dad.
yeah, like when
Yeah,
something goes wrong and like there's a disconnect
yeah,
whenever I'm in a situation with my children and there's a disconnect. It's also with my wife. Also, it also happens where it's like something's gone wrong. So like it just the train went off the tracks.
yeah.
Our alignment has derailed,
Right.
and I stop and I recognize relation like this is also beautiful, but like that it could just go so wrong, and that fragility, I'm so aware of it, and I every day I work so that it doesn't get there. Every day I try to arrive at new techniques so that I don't so that the pressure cooker is the steam is coming out,
Right.
because we're always there's always a pressure cooker at this age. We're in pressure cookers
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we want to accomplish ourselves with our families. We want our families to accomplish themselves, and so we're applying all this pressure
Yeah.
to ourselves.
And then you got regrets. And then you got all the stuff that you thought you should have accomplished and you
Yeah, yeah,
never
yeah,
got there. And that's just swimming around back there too. And some people that comes out as what we used to call the midlife crisis,
yeah,
go off somewhere. So you got
yeah.
that stuff adding pressure sometimes too. So
And that's so everywhere. And for me, yeah, I see the general discontent um in in the use of alcohol and drugs.
yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah,
there was a time, I don't know how many years ago, several years ago, 7 years ago, when I was drinking more than I wanted to, but I really felt like drinking. Like
yeah,
I wasn't getting drunk,
right.
but I was drinking.
Yeah. You
Like
had, I had a, yeah.
I always
Little
had to have a
drink
drink.
every day,
Yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
had a little something. I'm just having something with my food, with
yeah.
my dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, and I was aware that I just needed to take the edge off or
right,
something, right?
right. It
And
was
so
just part of, almost you were almost like you were having them. You were looking for a moment. you know?
Yeah. Can I get off the bus for a second? Can I take a break? Can I take a break
Exactly.
right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one day I was like, oh no, this can't go on. I said to myself, and this, so I said 7 years ago. So my kids were already, my kids were, 5 and 6. So this is happening while I'm with them and my wife. Okay, this is in my head. So this is how it applies to fatherhood, um, and I said, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop drinking completely, and I did. And the first thing that I noticed when I stopped drinking was there are liquor stores everywhere,
Yes.
everywhere, everywhere. There's alcohol everywhere,
Everywhere.
everywhere. You cannot drive half a mile without you having passed several liquor stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
What is that about, man?
and for anyone listening to this that is in the upper classes, you go to their houses, their liquor cabinets are filled.
Yeah.
The rich have you know uh, refrigerators with bottles of wine,
Yeah.
and liquor cabinets with every liquor. So it's not like so
Yeah,
they
it's
have
not
it in their house.
The rest of us have to go to the
We have
store
to go
and
to the
get a
store,
bottle,
but
one bottle.
but the
You
rich are
guys.
stocked.
Yeah.
So this is for everybody. This is for everybody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
so the point is, going back to the pressure cooking and connecting it to what's happening. There's so much. Everyone, we're all under so much pressure,
Yeah.
and that's why there's liquor stores everywhere, because people are buying alcohol. They wouldn't exist if people weren't buying
Yeah.
the product. And I don't know what the statistics on this, but I have to look into it, because I do believe that there must be more people with alcohol use issues, than there are of any other drug combined,
Oh, it's clearly.
right?
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
But but they also say, if depending on how you count it, the tobacco is
oh yeah, that's a good point.
you know.
So all of this to say, and connecting it to fatherhood, is we have all of these pressures, right? Like, and the regrets that add pressure to our daily life. And in your situation, for instance, when you were a single dad, single parents, man, being a single parent is horrendous. It must be. I don't know. I've never been, but you had one child. I mean, how many women are out there with multiple children, single parents of multiple
Listen,
children? How do they do it?
Ricardo, and the amount of time that I was single was just maybe a couple years, just a little bit, I think, but I chose well. I got when I got with my wife, I chose excellent. I would say
Nice.
one of the things that I got right, one of the things that is not a regret.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And was my choice for a wife, man. And I got that right. And if it wasn't for her, this thing would have been a lot different. I'm not saying I wouldn't have. My son wouldn't have come out as great as he is. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that
it is what it is.
She's a wonderful helpmate, and
but because you're a good man too, you got it because of who you are. But again, and I think that this is what comes out. Part of what comes out of this conversation. You had a good dad. You had a good model. You learned from him. You took on the information that he gave you. You embraced it. You made it your fundamental core. And then you meet a woman that is awesome and recognizes all of these items, right? The recognizes that the fundamentals are there, and you know what? He's a bit of a space cadet, but he's the fundamental, right? The important stuff is there.
Was there? Yeah, I like to think I gave her some something to work with. The cupboard wasn't completely bare.
Right.
So so I was there. I showed up.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
I mean, like, you say something that I don't, I take this very seriously when you say that, the lens through which you see your life, and uh, yeah, the lens through which you uh, filter the decisions that you're about to make is love.
Yeah.
And man, that's everything. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I don't know how corny it is to somebody who doesn't have that fundamental down, but if you don't have it, if you're listening to this and you don't have the fundamental down, you gotta figure out how to get there.
Yeah.
It's love, and what is love? Figure it out.
Wait a minute. And that's the other part. What is love?
Yeah,
Because we have for something that is so gravitational to our development as people, as a fully formed
yeah,
man or woman. Love is gravitational. It is gravity. It
yeah.
is a force. It is the primary force of nature.
That's it.
Now, how do you navigate gravity? How do you deal with gravity? How do you deal with love? What does it mean to you? You know what I mean? What is the significance? Some people are better. Michael Jordan, he can, he can defy gravity for a little while. You know
For
what
a
I
little while.
mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not so much. You know what I mean? But how do you navigate?
Yeah.
How do you deal with love? And it means if you ask 5 people what is love, you'll probably get 5 different answers. And then you have to figure out what does it mean to you, and what is your love language. You know what I mean, and everything. That's a and that's something that's a journey, man. That's a process, and
Yeah.
we have to understand that we don't think about our emotional well-being. We don't think of
Mm.
our emotional health enough. When we went to school and they taught us about you had PT, you had what is it, you had gym,
Mhm.
you know and that was our physical health. You had your health
Yeah.
class. They taught us about our physical selves. All right. When you went in and they taught you your classes, they taught you your lessons. That was your intellectual
Mm.
reasoning, your mental health. But where are you getting the emotional
Yeah.
um,
Education.
component, education?
Yeah.
Where are you getting that?
It's expected that it's happening at home is the issue,
But
and
here's
it
the
makes
thing.
sense.
But does it, Ricardo? When you really look at it, does it make sense that that's happening at home when your children? But think about it. For most of us, our children get our leftovers. The people who get the kids' best hours are the teachers, right?
Mm.
And the kids get the teachers' best hours. The quality time is being spent in school.
Mm.
If you stop and think about it, the kids are rested. They're rested. They ate. They put on their clothes. They get prepared. They go off. Their best version. We send them out as, if not their best versions of themselves, at least as near to it, or at least adequate. And also in return, the teachers come. They put on their best, and they try to uphold their end of the bargain and present
Yeah.
well and
Yeah.
teach the kids. So everyone's bringing themselves to one another in school. Now when you get and see your kids later in the evening, it's after you and your boss or your company or your business has gotten your best. Your
Mm.
customers, if you're in business, your clients, they've gotten your best. What do your kids get? They get the leftover. When you've done all of that stuff and now it's time for you to come home and be a
Yeah.
parent, and you're tired, and you know what I mean, and you got to eat, and and you're doing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
stuff that you need to just to prepare to get it up and do it
Yeah.
all again the next day. you know
Yeah.
so who's getting the best? When you stop and think about it.
Yeah.
So is it you know so out of line to think that
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a whole other conversation, right? I mean, about the educational system, but I think that there's a lot of, we could have a conversation about it, about just the educational system and what we
Yeah,
think
that
is.
alone. Yeah, yeah, that alone.
Yeah,
That's not even what we're talking about.
that's really
Yeah,
what we're
that's
talking
that,
about.
that's not even what we're going there.
Yeah, but I think that going back to the whole love situation, um, I do think that there's a lesson here, and that is anyone who's not thinking about what love means to them and how, or and is asking themselves, am I leading with that, with love? Am I leading my life with love? Am I looking, am I making decisions based on love? Even if you don't know what love is, then you would go back and say, well, what is the definition of it? I think that at the very least, anyone who wants to be an an amazing dad, anyone who says, you know what, I'd like to be a good dad.
Yeah,
If you say, I would like to be a good dad because I didn't have one, or because I'd like to be one like my dad, can very well start at, am I loving enough? Am I
right.
loving enough, and am I allowing my children and my wife to love me also?
Yeah, it's a healthy love because here's the thing too. Again, it goes back to definitions. I've seen people be in abusive relationships, and they just, well, the person loves me. Well, is that how you
Yeah,
show love?
yeah.
So it's you know what I mean. And but that's what love is to them. You know, I've unfortunately, there's I had a conversation with some friends of mine, and we were talking about women who have been in abusive relationships, for instance, and well, how did they know the guy that they were with beat them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they loved him. He showed his love by beating her. That's not love to me, but to her, that was love.
Mm.
She'd leave a guy who treated her right or treated her what we would think is normal or nice, and leave him for the guy. You
Yeah.
know, so it's like, so I mean, maybe that's an extreme point, but it's just to illustrate the point that it means a little bit for everyone. It's defined a little different,
Mm.
in different instances as well.
You,
So
yeah, I don't know. This is so I don't know. You don't think that there's like I don't think you don't think that universally we could arrive at
I
at
yeah, I think there are
like,
things that I think that there are when we say universally, we think
if you're being made feel bad, never mind being hit. If you're
right.
being made feel bad, that cannot be love.
No, I mean I don't think I think that there's right. That's not love. There's love absent in that.
Yeah,
There's
sure. My
there's
one
an absence. There's a certain
my
level of yeah.
Yeah,
You
my
know
one thing to hurt you isn't love.
right. But that's different from me. You know, it's definitely the absence of care
Yeah.
and and
So let's talk about that girl you were talking about. Like, she is going to, let's say she's leaving somebody who's not being physically or emotionally abusive for somebody who's being physically and emotionally abusive. I don't think that what she's looking is love for. It's love. I think that there's certainly issues. God only
right.
knows what happened way back
Yeah, and I
in
agree.
childhood.
And I would agree with you. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter what you and I say. It's what love means to her, you know?
I understand that. I
Yeah.
understand, but yeah, but again, I think that we could. I think. All right.
It's but that's the thing. That's the thing. It's so incredibly tricky. It's like, and I think what we may be talking about is how that idea fits into the greater society that that we're part of. Like trying to make like if we're talking about being fathers, we're trying to make effective children. We want our children to go off into this world, be effective,
Right.
be able to take care of themselves, be able to communicate, have healthy relationships with others who are obviously like-minded. You know what I mean? and the person who thinks like that will probably be the outlier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's nothing that person is going to have probably a lot of problems in this world. You know, there are at least a certain amount. Just navigating how the rest of us communicate, and and how the rest of us feel for one another and treat one another. You know what I mean? So there'll always maybe sort of be an outsider, but that's not who we're aiming our children at. You
Yeah. Yeah.
know, we're aiming our kids at sort of what we perceive to be this larger people. Yeah, I have my family members come through, right? But that's what we're looking at. You
Yeah.
know, so we're trying to aim our kids at that
Yeah.
ideal or that thought. That portion of the population, or whatever you want to call it.
This is you're saying something interesting that I hadn't really thought about. Like I do always think about the idea of the data dumping, but I never think about it. I never think about a an aim, right? I never think about a target. Well, I do think about. Hold on a second. Where do we aim our kid? Like I do. Yeah. Hold on. I do have a daily target, right? Like my
Mhm.
daily target is that we're that my kids, my wife and I are physically and emotionally healthy. That's it.
Right.
That's the daily target. But beyond that, I don't have something that I'm aiming towards when I make decisions. Like there's no. Do you have an aim? Do you have no, right? Because that would be too much, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything like
Not
that.
like that, no.
Just an ideal, maybe. I just have a feeling like there are things that I want my kids to be able to experience.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I want them to be able to experience. I have boys. I want them to have or at least have the option to maybe to experience love with a
yeah,
nice woman, and have the things that I know are good in my experiences, that I can give them. And I want them to feel that. I want them to possibly feel romantic love. I want them to feel the how, fatherhood. You know what I mean?
yeah,
The feeling of being able to provide, uh, you know, for your family, versus, physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually,
yeah,
and to nurture, to be of service to their communities, to their
yeah,
family, you know, um, just to be respected as a man, you know, just, to see that you are well respected or well received by your
yeah,
community or the people, your peer group, to have a peer group, to have friends
yeah.
that you're close to,
Those are
those
great.
sort of things.
Yeah, yeah. Those are great targets. It's like,
Yeah, that's if I can be said to have a target, I think that's
yeah,
you know
yeah. It's all of those items. It's
yeah.
not a single thing. What sort of things do you teach your children to keep them safe? Can you think of one?
Oh,
Safety.
yeah, I can teach them a bunch of stuff. Stay away from weirdos. you know, but no, the first thing I can tell them is to tell the truth. All right. I would say that's the first thing that I teach them, to keep themselves, to be honest, and to be unafraid. All right. And I don't, I let my kids know that, listen, you know, I'm not someone that you need to hide things from.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Same here.
You know, if you hide things from me, that means I can't help you because I don't know.
Yeah,
So, because those are the things that can really harm them, are the things that because you're taking yourself away from my experience.
yeah,
I am the most engaged, the most invested person in your well-being that right now.
yeah, yeah,
Myself and my wife, obviously, your mom. So why would you ever leave that resource out? If you
yeah,
make a mistake, fine, we'll fix it.
yeah.
You'll clean it up. you know yeah, 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 you might get yelled at a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. But
No, and I 100% identify with what you're saying. I literally, it's as if I was speaking. You're saying what I would say
yeah.
with to them. I literally I say these things to them. Yeah.
I often, one of the things I did, and for my, as a, I guess you want to say a parenting technique, is when I was angry. If I was ever angry with my kids, I would never raise my voice.
Mm.
I would go the opposite. I would actually get quiet. All right. So my kids would know. I would speak to them, but my voice would go lower. All right. I'd speak in a lower register. I'd get closer, and I'd talk to them and say, "Listen, this is what you did wrong," and they would get it, and then they would feel my energy, and they'd be like, "Ooh." You know what I mean? It'd just be like a slow simmer. If I needed
Yeah.
to intimidate or I needed to
Yeah.
really put that was the way I
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Because my thought process is, if I ever had to raise my voice, that means I need you to move now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
yeah, you know what I mean? That
Right.
means the house is on fire.
Yeah. The house
You
is
know what I'm
on
saying?
fire.
Like, I need you to get out of here now.
That's a
So
fantastic idea. Absolutely, I agree with it 100%. If you're always screaming, it's like the
scream it
calling,
out.
what is it, calling wolf
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If
Your
you're
boy
always
called Wolf. Yeah.
screaming
Yeah,
when
yeah.
the
It's
house is
just
on fire, oh, he's there goes
exactly.
dad again and he's
They
screaming.
filter it out. It
Yeah,
becomes part of the noise, the ambient
there's no
sound of
difference.
the house. Right. Yeah.
There's no difference between the emergency and the non-emergency.
Exactly.
That's its level. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a great point. I think that anyone listening right now definitely has got to pick that up, or
Yeah.
pick up on it.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
only have that one level when the
It
house is on,
exactly. You
yeah,
have to have different reactions. They have to know what they mean.
yeah,
Now, they also have to know that no means no. You know what I mean? Obviously, you have to, communicate that as well. But you have to do it in such a way that you don't, you're not yelling. You've already
yeah.
started off at 10. You got nowhere else to go.
That's
You know what
right.
I'm saying? Like,
That's right.
we got one gear.
There's no 11.
There's no way to go. Yeah, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? So it's like, okay, so we can just keep doing what we're doing until you reach 10, and then
yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah, so
That's a good point.
yeah,
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I think that what makes a good dad is, and I think what we're getting to here is introspection. A good dad thinks about what he's doing,
yeah,
thinks about why he's doing the things he's doing. Like, again, you just got very angry about something, and I'm gonna lower my voice, and I'm gonna make it very clear that this is a very serious situation.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah. And
Um,
they understood it. They
yeah,
got it.
yeah,
They
they
definitely
get
got
exactly. I mean, if you're thinking about what you're doing, they are thinking about what you're doing,
it.
because you didn't just model this today. It's
Right,
not like it didn't appear.
right,
Dad has been this way from the very beginning.
right,
It's been
right,
modeled the entire time.
right,
They know, they see us all the time. I say this often, that the amount of time that we spend verbally communicating with our children is minimal compared to the amount of time that we spend modeling behavior and communicating via what we do to them.
And so much of our communication is nonverbal.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just that most communication is nonverbal.
It's like,
Nonverbal is
yeah.
the least effective way.
Totally, yeah, yeah. No, and the one that we use the least. We just
Yeah,
we don't need to spend tons of time talking, because our behavior is showing what we
that's your
would
communication.
say. It's
Yeah,
being said.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so
You,
much
you know,
is
it always makes me laugh when I hear, like, men who have always been smokers, and they don't understand why their kids are smoking.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
so
they
weird.
got come on, man. They got like a walking, what do you call it, billboard, just walking through the house. Your Pall Mall or Newport or whatever you're smoking. I don't know.
And the drinking,
Yeah,
it's like,
same thing. Same thing. So they're gonna pick up the things that they see you do. They're constantly modeling, and boys are always gonna model themselves after their fathers. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
So it's like, and I would say that's the other thing that I got from my father that I also pass on to my boys, which is so instrumental. It's just the opportunity to size yourself up against your dad. You know what I mean? I sized myself up against my father growing up. How big am I? Am I tall as my dad now? I wonder if I can, when I got older, I mean, my dad's pretty rough and tough. He's strong, you know what I mean? I wonder if
Yeah.
I'm as strong as my dad. I wonder if he's, you know what I mean? And growing up, I thought he was the fastest guy. I thought he was the strongest guy. I thought he was the coolest guy, you know what I mean? And I'm constantly looking at him and, trying to, size myself up. And I
Yeah,
see my
yeah.
boys do the same to me,
My
you know what I mean? You have to be present for that.
my kids paid me a compliment the other day. I don't know. They said something along the lines of they said something like, "Yeah, I know." They said they were together, and they're like something along the lines of, "Yeah, Dad, you're a pretty smart guy." And I was like, ugh.
I know, Ricardo, like you guys, okay.
I was like,
I present
yeah,
well, yeah.
I know a few things, but when you
Yeah,
guys get older, you'll see that
yeah.
not as smart
Yeah,
as not as
yeah,
smart as you think.
yeah, yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but it was still a nice compliment,
It's nice to hear. And
yeah,
listen, man, and it comes from the most pure place,
yeah,
you know. And my kids think, my oldest thought I was a genius.
yeah.
I'm like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
okay. Like, all right,
Yeah,
you'll find out one
you'll find.
day. But I'm just trying to push it off as long as
So
possible,
yeah,
man. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
just trying to get you as far down the line as possible
that's
before
right.
you wake up.
Yeah, yeah. You got to keep Santa Claus alive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny, man.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. It's an insane amount of work. It's so sad, man. The statistics are so terrible about how many of us dads are not engaged.
yeah,
It's terrible. I mean, I have this one book saying something like only 20% of men 20% report having good relationships with their fathers or with their children. 20%, man. Like
yeah,
heartbreaking because all children, all boys and girls just are dying to connect with the men
yeah.
that they, that are their fathers.
I think we've kind of bought into, you know, almost like, when it comes to raising kids, the fathers, like the mothers, are mandatory. It's like for you to be
Yeah.
a fully, it's generally accepted for you to be a fully formed individual or person. You need to have a mother figure or a mother in your life.
Yeah.
The dads come, the dads. It seems like we're just a nice have.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can help, but for some reason we don't get the same level of, I don't know, press or belief that that our presence is as important, and I think it is.
Something happened. I don't know what it was like. I don't know what it was 1,000 years ago, but um I don't know, maybe 1,000 years ago, if we were to look back, if we could look back, we might find that the men were so engaged. I don't know. Or maybe men never were. And
I think, well, we know that we look back at traditional roles of men and women. Men tended to be, out of necessity, you know out of the home, hunter
yeah,
gatherers, making war or
yeah,
whatever we're doing, and women, we were the resource gatherers. We gathered the resources and dropped them off, and it was the
yeah,
woman's role to make a home,
to make it home. Yeah.
make
Well, I mean,
operate
so
the
so so
processes.
yeah, I guess if we go back 1,000 years, maybe what we find is that there's work on the farm requires that someone do pretty heavy
Yeah,
labor, and we are
we were built for it.
we're built we're built for that.
Yeah, we're built for it just from a physiological
Yeah,
standpoint alone.
we're this
We,
yeah.
yeah, we're able to work harder and for
But
longer.
yeah, it's and so maybe it's just now, right? Just now are we, because when I do read a little bit about, like, I don't read too much what is it, 2,300 years ago, Greece, Socrates, and in these great minds that have written beautiful texts that have lasted this long. If I, some of what I've been reading, it doesn't really doesn't there's nothing in there that says that dads were, highly engaged, right? So
Right, right,
so
right,
so so
right,
we know
right,
that 2,300. So that wasn't the
right.
case. In 3,000 years ago,
Yeah,
in what, China, I don't think that anyone's talking about,
yeah,
Genghis Khan or whatever, like being a super dad, right? So apparently it's only happening now,
yeah.
right? After all these thousands of
Yeah,
years,
it's a
we're sort of,
relatively recent occurrence.
yeah,
Maybe that dads are disengaged with the children, in
yeah,
child rearing and homemaking and nurturing, you
yeah.
know, family,
It's
and
yeah,
which would coincide with the changing roles or sharing roles with regard to gathering of resources for the home with women, so women are working more, so you know what I mean, and
yeah,
pushing to make the same wage we know as men, and and having the same freedom
yeah.
to be as men, and to and it should, I guess, maybe it's it should come as no surprise that you know um, those jobs are still in need. So now that
Yeah.
women are doing one thing that is different, men are now doing something else or trying some the other thing.
But I mean, okay. So also, I'm sure there were dads on the farm that were like super loving, caring
Oh,
dads.
of course, of course. And but that's the thing, we're not talking about love. We're talking about, let's say, engagement, and how we show love and how we show engagement, and what level or what time is spent with
Yeah.
the children. I could be a super engaged and loving person uh, as a father, for a father, but if the way we define our roles in the family is that I am also the breadwinner and I've got to go out and
Mm.
work while the mother gets to stay, I shouldn't say gets to, that's she has to stay home and with the children
Yeah,
and
yeah,
house, as we can, thought, as we think of as sort of like the traditional role, then it would also stand to reason that most quality time is going to be spent with the mother, between the children and the mother, because
mm,
she's doing the most in terms of actual child rearing. Now that gets changed once we now send the kids off to school, right? Which
yeah,
frees up the time for mothers to go out and also earn a wage, all right? And which is a necessity, because now, it takes two
yeah,
wages to live.
right.
So now,
And no, no,
what is quality time?
yeah, no, and not just what it takes, but also hugely important. Uh, as soon as women could explore the idea of a career,
Right.
education, expansion, like,
Yeah.
in their own
Self
universes.
improvement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Choices. Yeah.
So
Options. Yeah.
well beyond the wage. I mean, I think that,
Yeah.
where things were lacking, I think, or at least one of the places where we were lacking in society, was that we were not allowing women to do anything that they could imagine
Yeah.
wanting
Self
to do.
determination.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess, yeah. There's a lot this is why it's so difficult to judge previous generations, because there is an evolution. There is, and now, for instance, like something that we didn't that people that our parents didn't have, and I was talking about this the other day, is you were talking about earlier that we have access to the answer to any questions, to any
Yeah.
question that we might have in our pockets.
Yeah.
A generation ago, there were not even bookstores
Yeah. With
nearby.
just amazing computing power. It just,
Yeah, I know
when you
every. Yeah.
stop and think about it, it's,
Oh, forget it.
yeah.
Forget it. Yeah. So yeah, but I think so. Bottom line is, this is where we are. This is where we are 2020. 2020, we're somewhere around at around 20% happiness, or happy in relationships between, men and their fathers and their sons. And I think that we appear to be headed in the direction of, attempting to increase that percentage,
Yeah,
because I think, clearly we're recognizing, dads are important, and you recognize it, because you had such a great, the father, and in childhood, and I recognize it because I didn't have it, and I know that I knew that I wanted to give it to the children that I brought into this world,
yeah,
to the men in this case are two men, and or the children, yeah, the children that I brought into this world that happen to be men. Um, that that I've wanted to do better,
yeah,
to do that better, and to continue that going. So I think that my I hadn't thought about this way, but my contribution to humanity might be these two pretty awesome men who grew up in a healthy home environment with mom and dad, original bios,
yeah.
um,
I think that's a fantastic contribution, man.
right.
I think the most revolutionary thing, I say it all the time, the most revolutionary thing you can do, get married, stay together,
Yeah,
raise a family up, man. And send them out, man. And and teach them the right way, and send them out into the world and let them be functional members of society.
yeah, yeah, totally, right. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's what it's all, because because from every, no matter what, you know no matter what, I don't know what level of dissatisfaction that we experience on any level of society, it usually comes from that. It usually comes from people not being allowed the ability to determine their fate, to make choices, to make informed choices. You know what I mean? And to be healthy people. And if you can, no matter where you are in that spectrum, if you're able to do that in mass, you
yeah,
know, then that's got to be the key. That's got to be the work that you do. You know,
yeah.
and my father, I love him dearly. I'm glad he's in my life. He was not a perfect guy. I'm not going to sit and say all the stuff he got wrong, because there's a whole bunch of stuff he taught me that he probably didn't need to teach me. Right? But I was able to filter it out and figure out, okay, that I
Right.
can't pull forward, because again, his idea of manhood was formed by a previous set
Yeah,
of I don't know, thought process, that
yeah,
had no place in an evolving,
yeah,
growing, world,
right,
that I
right.
was now inhabiting. And I have to allow him and forgive him for whatever bad information or bad advice he gave me.
Yeah,
And because someone on the line, I'm going to have to forgive myself for whatever I give my kids that doesn't fit, into the world that they're going to inhabit,
yeah,
so, because we
yeah.
can't possibly get it all right. Can't
No,
possibly
no,
get it all right.
and no, and the speed, the speed of change right now, in society, because of technology, is we just don't know what the heck is gonna be happening. Like, we don't know what, I mean, like, when when Elon's talking about that neural link, and so, like, the idea that we already have these, we're already the androids, we already have, uh
Part of our consciousness is already merged,
it's already
right,
merged, yeah, there,
with these
yeah,
things, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Because
And
just look at us all day,
all day, yeah.
right? I mean, I have you. How many times have you been out back when we used to be able to go out? In the previous world's
Yeah,
iteration. But I'd go out in a nice restaurant, and my wife and I would be talking, and we'd look over and we'd see a younger couple, and they're both in their phones like this,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they,
And that's about to change if everyone gets, neural linked.
yeah,
You're always on,
You're
always
always on.
connected,
You're always connected.
always.
The feed is always on.
The
You
feed's
know,
always on.
everyone can always
Everything.
see what you're eating. You don't have to take a picture
No
and
more
put it up to
pictures.
Facebook.
Just broadcasts your life
Yeah, yeah,
completely.
yeah.
I don't know, man. And
I don't want
this
that.
is why I keep saying, I keep saying you know, we cannot, and I do believe that I see a lot of fathers today making this huge mistake, parenting from the past,
Yeah.
not recognizing how completely out of this world the future is going to be.
My father, just think about this. My father's 80 years old. He grew up in rural North Carolina, right? On a farm somewhere. Farm boy,
Yeah.
right? Son of a logger, right? So, you know, he can remember when they didn't have electricity in his area, when they
Wow.
didn't
Yeah.
have running water. You had an
Yeah. Yeah.
outhouse.
Yeah.
There was no electricity. You were rich if you had a telephone. And when you called it, it was like their first iteration of the telephone was almost like a party line. If your phone rang, everyone's phone rang. And you had to kind of figure it out based off of who it was for by maybe the time that, that this person was going to call you at
Yeah.
a certain time. So you'd answer, and sometimes someone else would be on the line down the road. You know what I mean? And you'd hear them and they'd hang up, and you know what I mean? And that was how the telephone worked.
Yeah.
Imagine going from that. Today, he has his own cell phone.
Yeah.
He's looking on Facebook. He's
Yeah.
watching video on YouTube. He's taking pictures and sending them to his siblings who grew up the same way. And he's, video chatting and video talking with them. Like, to them, it was like it's all science fiction. It's like we're living in science fiction. His little 12-year-old self.
Yeah.
You could see the 80-year-old
Oh yeah.
man now.
Yeah.
It'd be like he was on another planet, you know?
Yeah. Science fiction, man. Well, who was it? What was his name? Uh, the Italian. Oh, Marconi, right? The
Yeah.
guy. The
Telephone, yeah.
telegraph. The
Yeah,
telegraph. Yeah.
telegraph, yeah.
Yeah. He sent signals. I think it was it. It was sending signals through the air.
Yeah.
He, if I read this, if the story that I read is correct, he was put in an insane asylum for claiming that he could send anything through the air.
Yeah. He was right.
And I bring that up just to say we're gonna, right now someone is thinking through about something so crazy that we would like to put them in an insane asylum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what we have to worry about, Derik.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you and I have to worry about. And this is why we can't parent from the outhouse.
Right. Well, I would say we don't. I would say it's not a worry. It's not a worry. It's acceptance. Once you accept the thing, there's no need to worry.
Yeah, that's
we just have to get to a place of acceptance, and that will take care of the fear, which will take care of the mean words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the anger, and the broken expectations, and just free us up.
Yeah.
Parents.
I want to say something that a while back I thought of when you were speaking about how awesome your 12-year-old, the 12 or the 10-year-old, he was doing. What did you say he was doing? Oh, he got in. Oh, the coding. Which one's
12-year-old.
The 12. Yeah.
The 10-year-old's going to be an engineer. He already knows. Like, he decides he's going to be. But the 12-year-old is really awesome because this was like growth. This really represents growth for him.
Yeah, and what I wanted to say about that at 12 is I think, because you're not the first dad to during this conversation speak so highly of this 12-year-old. Like, he's just so amazing.
Oh man.
And what I want to say about that is, but not on their own, not on his own. I want to say that it's because of the work that you've done and the work that your wife has done and the data dumping that you both have done. Like they're awesome at 12 because they've gotten it all or as much as possible.
Listen, I know he's not finished.
Right.
If I got to take, I'm just trying. I think that I had there's a big portion of him which is just raw material, and I think the Most High gave me great raw material, and it's up to me to nurture it, to get it where it wants to go, and to respect his own will.
Yeah. That's important.
Because that's given by our Father, and I have to respect that. That's he's going to have his own will.
Yeah.
And I can't tell him how to feel about a thing.
Yeah.
How to react. All I can do is nurture him. All I can do is protect him, support him, and data dump, as much as I can. But he's got to decide what he's going to do with it. I can guide him and try to clear the way as much as I can. But past that point, and then and then the rest, I just have to get to a place of acceptance at some point eventually, and accept that I've done, what I've done. And he's gonna make some choices that I wouldn't make, and I have to accept that. There are going some and especially my middle child, because I already see it. He's got his personality. He's going to do some things that are going to make me scratch my head.
Yeah, but because you encouraged it, because you allowed it, because you're allowing him because you're respecting his will. That's why he will.
That's the thing. I can't stop it. He was always meant to make his own decisions. He was built that way. You know what I mean? All of them are. So I have to get to a place of acceptance in that and say, okay, so my purpose for him is, again, trying to get to a place of security. So I'm trying to get him to think the way I think.
Yeah.
That's not going to fare. That's not going to fare well. All right.
Yeah.
So I can't do that. Instead, I have to get to a place where my sense of security is, okay, I have given you all that I know how to give. Yeah. And then I have to explain to you why I don't agree with whatever it is you're thinking. I have to clear a space so that we have an open and honest communication, so that I become one of the first sources that you turn to when it's time for you to make a decision, until you get comfortable enough and confident enough that you don't have to turn to me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just kind of go off and you do your own thing. And you only get there because things have worked out enough.
Yeah.
You have that sense of security, again, within yourself, and you're able to go out and do that.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the place that I have to hopefully get him to. And I can't do that by telling him what to do and making him
You'd ruin it.
Behave.
Right. Yeah. We would ruin the relationship if we started that. Yeah. That
I could make him behave for a time while he's in my presence.
Yeah.
But the minute he's out of my presence,
yeah,
worse, I could confuse him.
Yeah.
So that he suppresses his own self.
Yeah.
And then it comes popping out somewhere later in life, and he's confused. That's even worse.
Yeah, I think that, and the way to make sure that we're respecting their will, and the way to make sure that we're not ruining the relationship is to think of with curiosity, right? So they're unique individuals. So as a father, I choose to try to find out. That's what it is. I choose to make the extra, do the work. I choose to do the work. I choose to do the work of trying to find out, who is this guy?
Right.
What's he saying?
Right. And you have to ask that question, because he's his own person.
Yeah.
You have to ask him. You have to get to know your kids.
Right.
And that's the key. Yeah. Eventually they're going to become the best. This is the mind blow. I just thought of it. That's the best case scenario. At some point, you're going to have to ask yourself, who is he? Because he's going to be fully formed. It's going to be a completely different person from you. And you're
Yeah.
going to have to assess and ask yourself and get to know, who is this person? You know what I mean? And if you're doing that along the way, constantly asking yourself that, constantly paying attention to that, I think maybe you can have some effect,
Yeah.
and some success.
What's crazy for us, what's crazy for us is that you and I think, are going to be trying to find out who these guys are for probably the entirety of our
Yeah.
lives,
Yeah.
because that's the relationship that we have with them. This is this. I apologize to my mother if she's listening to this one. I've probably said it already, but it's something about my mom that I don't like, is I feel like she doesn't. I don't feel heard. I think she looks at me and I feel that she's imposing all of her ideas and ideals on me, and she's not listening. Like she's, and I in arguments I have said this to her: you're not listening to me. You're not. It's like, don't you see that I'm saying something different than what you're seeing? No,
Right.
don't you see that I'm saying something different than what you're saying?
Right.
And because of that, I guess, and that's why I have so clear in my mind that with my children, I am always going to be, because I'm in my late 40s.
Right.
That's why I'm so clear that when I'm in my 80s, I'm gonna be wondering, hey man, tell me again, what is it you trying, what are you saying, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and taking a back seat, because the data dump was done right. I mean, the formative, 10, 15 years, maybe 20, 18, your boy left at 18, the formative 18 years, you did right. You're right. They were, you treated them like individuals with that had some value within them already.
Because they were always going to be that way.
Mm.
Like, that was the point. You have to see that potential and accept that potential in them. That's the key. And teach and nurture to that potential. He's always going to be that person. He was always going to be that person. He's going to be so he's going to be his own person. So you treat him that way. You don't treat him as a little mini me and, part of, and add my own, I don't know, ego.
Yeah. Like an extension of you.
Yeah, like an extension of me. You know what I mean? He's not me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm going to get it wrong because their thought process and how he thinks about things is going to be so different for me. And I'm just going to say, listen, just do it the way I'm telling you to do, because I need to get to a place of security right now. So just do what I'm trying to tell you to do. But Dad, you're not me and you're not getting it. I don't care. Just, I need security right now. That's what I need. I don't care what it is. And it's going to happen.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what that's what parents, moms and dads are saying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what, and I know I'm going to do it. And I know I have done it, but hopefully I've added enough of this other stuff in there, where he can kind of forgive me for that,
Yeah, sure.
And, if it harmed him at all, and just take a little bit of it, because there's some wisdom in that, and just leave the rest.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to apologize, because it's during the apology, after that, wacky moment, right? Yeah. That we have an opportunity to say, I was afraid, I'm sorry. You know what, I've been thinking about how I reacted, and it was all wrong, and I was just afraid at that moment. Yeah. And then that's an amazing lesson, and then he's gonna be like, it's okay, Dad.
I hope so.
Well, yeah, or so the some of what you were saying made me think of this wonderful word that I forget which book. I still have it in here, and I could think of where I got it. Concerted cultivation. I think that's what you and I do. It's like, you look at your kid and you go, he might like X, and then you expose him to X, right? Right. That's concerted cultivation. That's how I think of myself. It's like, for instance, like we've been doing things lately. Something that I like to do is rock climbing, which I haven't done a lot of in my life, but I enjoy it. So I've taken him, indoor, so that we can, get started. And so, we've done other things, that I think the rock climbing thing might be something that they go into, but what might they like, what might each one of them like. And sometimes when you say that your dad took you often to places, are you an only child?
No, not
Okay.
at all. I have siblings. We all had, our own individual, relationship with our father. You know
So
what I mean?
that made the effort to take,
Well,
each.
yeah, that's just sort of how, I think it's just sort of how it worked out. He, again, I have one brother who I'm the product of one marriage with, and that sort of deal. I've got
Yeah,
two older brothers and two younger siblings, and it's just sort of how it worked out.
yeah,
But 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 I think we all can say, and you can tell just in how each of us relate to him, that he got some time. He got his time in with each of
yeah.
us,
Okay,
in his own way.
that's pretty cool.
So yeah. You know.
I do ask, I asked my youngest just the other day. I'm like, hey man, you think I'm spending enough time with you? And he goes, yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but listen. Here's the thing. There's a bunch of stuff that I didn't get to do with my dad because he worked a lot, right?
Yeah,
And so that's and we still haven't talked about that, in sense that the previous generation, the expectation of a man was that you work all the time,
yeah. That was what you
and
did.
he was a provider. Never saw a day where we had an empty fridge, or the lights were on every time I flipped the switch, unless the bulb was out. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
And so he was a provider,
yeah.
but that comes with a cost too. You
In, in,
know,
in fairness to those guys, Derek, I want to interrupt, because in fairness to those guys, there was a lot of pressure on them because women were not allowed in the workforce. So at home you had a woman that was expecting you to get,
right? Or at least they weren't making as much money
right.
as as the man, and
Opportunities weren't there.
the opportunities weren't there.
Yeah, yeah,
And my mother was still is. She's a very wonderful, beautiful lady, very intelligent. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased and she's my mother. You know what I mean? She's a fantastic person. And she did what she did. She raised kids, man, and
yeah,
that's what she was expected to do.
yeah,
There was some expectation that came with that, you know, and then he was expected to do his
yeah,
part,
yeah, yeah,
which was something completely different. So if he made it home, sometimes I'd see him, but a lot of my time that I see my father, he was asleep.
yeah,
I could go to his room, he'd be in there, I could hear him snoring. You know what I mean? But he might be asleep.
yeah,
And but somewhere along the line, I'd see him at some point, and um, and maybe when I was as a teenager, that happened a lot, and there were probably times as a teenager I could have used him, when he
yeah,
wasn't necessarily available. Um, but overall, I don't think it. Again, no one's perfect. No relationship is perfect. Nobody. You
yeah,
got to
yeah,
do what you
yeah,
got to do.
yeah,
But it never came from. I never once felt unloved by him. Or like I didn't matter. You know.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
that's very important.
yeah,
So
definitely.
so it is what it is.
Mr. Derek, awesome conversation, man. I think that clearly we can go on for many more hours.
Yeah. Yeah. There's plenty there to talk
There's plenty there,
about.
man. I love the conversation. I think we should end it.
Okay, great.
I'm sure you got things to do. But
I just want to
yeah,
say thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
yeah,
Um, and
so good,
it's
man.
beautiful to see you with your children, your boys, and I think you're a great dad, man. And what you're doing here, just exploring this state, this manhood, this level of manhood, this level of fatherhood. The way that you're doing is very important. Just
Yeah.
want to acknowledge you for that, man. It's,
Thanks.
that you're lighting the way for a lot of us,
Yeah. Thanks, man. No, and
It's a
I
wonderful contribution.
thank you, man. Yeah, no, I have I wish so much that a million people see this particular conversation. It's one of my favorites so far.
Oh, thank you.
I loved everything that you said. Probably because we align, right? It makes sense.
I guess.
But it's
Yeah.
nice, it's nice to hear from somebody else. It's nice to hear somebody else, being focused and understanding what they're doing, what their role is, and their responsibility. You understand your responsibility to these people.
Yeah.
These are real human beings that need guidance and mentors, and you're there for them. And at 12, kicking butt already. That's awesome. I mean, and
Hey, man, he's doing well. He's and as all my sons are, and I can't take all the credit. Their mother,
yeah,
she's exceptional, man.
yeah,
And I think if if my role has been to gather resources,
yeah.
I think I gave them one of the best I could have, which was their mother. All right. So I gathered that
Yeah.
up too.
That is a nice way to close this conversation, man. I can think of nothing better to say than that.
All right, brother.
Congratulations with that beautiful wife of yours and your
Thank you, brother.
children. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you.